Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to this webinar in the form of a panel discussion on the topic of the hiring process, the hiring strategy from the viewpoint of the companies. My name is Merel Ax. I work for the Eureka Career Center of KU Leuven, where we support you, young researchers, in building up your careers. This webinar is within the framework of the ADVANCE project. So ADVANCE is a 30-month EU training project. It's an innovative and focused learning program for future developers of ATMPs. It's a three-stage blended learning program to support you in building up your career. It consists of some e-learning modules, 7 webinars, and a face-to-face workshop. And we have 2 cycles. So we just finished the first cycle of webinars, and we also had 3 career coaching webinars. For example, CV and motivation letter writing, how to do a job interview, and a webinar on stress and resilience. If you're interested, you can watch the recording of these webinars on the YouTube channel of Beatrice. And this webinar is the first webinar of the second cycle. And now we want to give you a glimpse into the viewpoint of the employers. This is for PhD students, early career, postdocs and doctors in training. On the next slide, I can show you the project partners of ADVANCE. So it's KU Leuven, Elevate, Beatrice, I3H, Takis Biotech Company from Italy, and then the University of Ljubljana, and also Istituti Superiori from Rome. I now give the floor to my colleague Nicole Wedel van Looipold, my colleague at the Eureka Career Center, and she will be the moderator of this panel discussion.
Thank you very much, Merel. Yes, hello, welcome everyone to this afternoon discussion. My name is Nicole. You see that, I guess, just there under my picture. A very quick technical introduction. You all found the emoji buttons, which is great, which gives us some sort of interaction. It is a streaming platform, but if you react like that, we know that you are still here. Thank you. You see the questions that you could send in and vote for up front to your left-hand side. And while we are speaking, I'm trying to highlight the questions that we are speaking about at the moment. So you will see that. If you have any additional question to that specific one, you can use the send a reaction field underneath the question. So let's stick to this channel for more questions, for answering questions. You also see a chat down on the right hand bottom, but let's keep this one for more technical kind of questions. We have a technical backup here, and if you have technical issues, that's the chat on the right bottom, and we stick to the left to our questions. That was a quick one. We have 4 panelists here today, and I would like to hand over the microphone to you to do for each of you a quick introduction. And I propose Sophie Paepe. Maybe you can start. Who are you?
Thank you, Nicole. Good afternoon, everybody. And first of all, I want to thank Nicole and Merel for the splendid organization of this afternoon. It's an honor for me to be talking to you and to provide you with more insights on the employment market for professionals and students, I mean. So my name is Sophie Paepe, and I'm the owner of HR1 Group. HR1 Group is a recruitment and selection agency, and we are 100% dedicated and focused on life sciences. Together with my team of 5 that you see there in the picture, we're helping both students as well as experienced scientists towards interesting careers in pharmaceutical industry, medtech, hospitals, but even in startups and scale-ups. And this not only in Belgium, but really in Europe and beyond. It is with a passion for people, of course, that I started this career. It was a logical step also for me with a natural interest in life sciences to go this way. My background is a master in linguistics with a focus on French and Spanish. And afterwards, I also added a master in management to my education from KU Leuven. And I spent 6 months in France for an Erasmus stay, which was very enriching, both on educational point as well on personal level. So then I finished my studies and I found a combination of both my social skills, my entrepreneurial skills at HR1 Group. And as I value personal commitment a lot, I'm proud to say that today we're really hiring the best candidates for top companies. And even during the pandemic, I must say that we continue to do so, and that we find that people are still very flexible. Companies are very flexible to hire people. So to us, you can find jobs as a consultant, as an interim manager, but also as fixed contractor at our clients, of course. Then what I want to say to you as well is that we work closely together with different universities like KU Leuven. Also, I think Merel mentioned I3H. We're also a partner of them. I think it's important to continue learning. And of course, being a people person, I'm really curious to get to know you better, to understand how we can guide you to your next professional challenge. And so always feel free to send your CV for free CV advice or any guidance. And I'm really looking forward to your questions.
All right, thank you very much. Denis, good morning or good afternoon.
Still good morning, just good afternoon here. I'm based in Dublin, Ireland. So hello, everyone. Thanks for joining. So hopefully I'll be able to give you a little bit of an industry perspective. I've been with Novartis now for about 7 years, coming up on 7 years. My background is actually, I started once upon a time as an electronic engineer and went through a bachelor's degree in that. And then I came out and I did a master's in business analytics and management science. And then I traded, I was in finance for many years, trading futures and options in London and Dublin, and moved from there into training different teams and project management, and from there into the pharmaceutical industry. So I didn't have a straight career line of sight at all. It's where I've gone, and I've jumped around from various industries, and I hope it kind of, what I can say and give you perspective on is the diverse backgrounds that can be brought to anything really. So from our industry and my team. So I'll give you a little bit of perspective on where I sit within Novartis. So Novartis has about 120,000 employees internally, as well as about 40,000 external employees. But it's broken up into a number of divisions. The division that I sit within is called Novartis Business Services, which is one of the large pharmaceuticals have started doing this, but it's an internal shared services organization of about 10,000 people. So within the company, different parts of the organization, when they're looking for product support for the different stages of a product life cycle, they may bring in Novartis Business Services to help out when they haven't got the skill sets themselves, or when it doesn't make sense for them to hire in the skill set directly to an internal functional team. They'll bring in our teams, which have a wide array of services that they can choose from and support the launch. And then those internal shared service teams can move on to the next launch, so they don't have to stay within a particular part of the organization. And it can be, they're almost used as a release valve for the organization, so they can scale up and down depending on the stage in the life cycle of the product. So yes, hello, and hopefully I'll be able to answer some of your questions and be able to provide you with some good perspectives.
Thank you very much. Vicky, I'm going to give it a try. I see you come and go, but let's see.
Yeah,
okay,
indeed.
I hear you well.
It seems like it's sometimes refreshing. So, but I hope it will work like this. So, hello everybody. Happy to be here. So, I hope you will also enjoy this session and that we can answer lots of your questions. To talk a bit about my background, I have an economic background. And I did an additional year in HR at the Vlekko Business Schools in Brussels. When I started my career, so I've always been working in HR so far, but I started my career in a different industry, namely the automotive industry. But after 3 years, I left and I moved to the very exciting biotech industry. So I then joined Ablynx. So far I've been working for almost 15 years now in Ablynx, so in the biotech pharma industry. I have quite a generic experience. So I started there as an HR officer with a very broad scope. I was involved in many HR areas, in many HR projects. You can see it a bit further on the slide. So I was involved in many cross-functional projects like for example, installing the function classification system combined with the compensation and benefit systems. We did employee surveys, all kind of interesting projects. And then early 2018, we were acquired by Sanofi. So Sanofi was very interested in the company because we were already in a very late stage of our first product, namely caplacizumab. And also the fact that our nanobody platform is very promising. That was also one of the reasons why they acquired us. So since beginning 2018, we are now part of the Sanofi family. And since then, my role changed, and since then, I'm the HR business partner for the Ablynx R&D side within the Sanofi company. So yeah, and I interact a lot with our leadership team, with our people managers concerning all kind of HR topics. So that's about it. And if you later on have questions for me, you can always contact me. Yeah, I don't know if the email address was shared, but don't hesitate to contact me through the chat or so.
Okay, thank you, Vicky. And so Len, if you hear us, I think the sound is a bit funny, but I'll give the word to Guido Gielen.
Yes, thank you very much. I'm going to keep it short. So my name is Guido Gielen. I'm a sociologist by training, but that's a long time ago. I spent my entire life in HR, lion's share within J&J, where I serve different client groups, locally in Belgium, but also in the US. And then I had different global roles, each time supporting different client groups. So from an HR perspective, I saw the different steps in drug development. 2010, I left J&J, 120,000 people company, to join 240 at that point in time in Ghent, Ablynx, same company as Vicky. We were very close launching our first product. At that point in time, like Vicky said, 450, 460 people. We were acquired by Sanofi. I was part of the executive committee, and the entire executive committee, in fact, then also resigned. I stayed 1 year to help the transition or the integration. And since then, I'm supporting 8 medtech, biotech companies in Flanders and Brussels. And that's, in fact, my experience so far.
Thank you very much, you all, for your time and for sharing your experience, and to give us a little. I'm sorry, I'm hearing myself double so well. We prepared a poll anyways. You see to the left polls, and I'm just gonna open the poll now to get a little glimpse on to whom we are speaking today. First question, are you a PhD researcher, postdoc researcher, or another human being? Okay, I see By the way, we are 115 viewing at the moment, and we have half of you being PhDs, 14, 15 postdocs, and then a minority being others. I have a second poll. Are you actually looking for jobs? Why are you here today? All right. I see the majority graduating this year still or next year, so you will probably be looking for jobs soon. And 2021 are actively applying at the moment. Interesting. And some 18 are not applying yet, but I suppose are ready to get inspired and get the information. Okay. So that is us, that is you. And I propose that we will jump right in to your questions, to our questions. But first one is indeed the one from you. I'd like to ask first, what are some of the opportunities for moving from a scientific research heavy PhD to a business strategy, market access strategy role in industry? I'm highlighting this to the left. It's a very broad question, I think, and that's why I would like to start with that. I don't know, maybe Denis, you're first on my screen. Do you have any thoughts here?
Yeah, so that's with pharmaceutical industry and companies, they're so broad and so large that there's opportunities within opportunities. There's huge amounts of opportunities, and there's not always, I would say, so say I see a lot of people on the call are PhDs or PhD researchers, and they might feel they have a particular field of expertise or that it's narrow. That's not necessarily what you should limit yourself to when you're looking for jobs within the industry. I think that when we're looking for people in Novartis, we'll often so part of the division I'm with, we can be applied to all of the different franchise areas. We might not necessarily have expertise in a particular franchise or therapeutic area, but it's internally we know that we can be applied to them and we'll be upskilled for that area, and you'll be trained up on how to react or adapt. What is key is that you have the background in your PhD, you have the scientific research, you know a lot of the jargon, as it were, you know what you're talking about, and that can be applied to a lot of different fields, whether that's medical communications, medical information, in the labs themselves, the research. So I think what you do have is the functional knowledge and expertise, and then how you can get into other areas, the commercial side of the business, the medical side of the business, or the access side of the business. It all depends on yourself and how willing you are to apply yourself and apply for jobs in those areas. And I can guarantee you, because I've sat on lots of interviews at this stage, they'll bring in for the interview panels themselves even. So it might be that they're looking for a specific role in medical communications. They'll bring in perspectives from different parts of the business. So, I'll be brought in by my peers to just sit on the interview panel. I mightn't have the expertise in the functional area they're looking for, but I'll be talking to the candidates and seeing what type of learning agility they have, what their potential is to move into other areas of the business after they get accepted for that role. It might be that we see then, okay, this person is very suitable for the role here, but they also have a lot of potential and a broader skill set that they could potentially move into a wide set of jobs within the company. And I think that's highly valued. And so anything you can do to demonstrate your skill set and your learning agility, I think is very valuable, and it will really come across in interviews. So I hope that somewhat answers the question.
Anyone wants to add? Guido? You're on mute still?
Yeah.
You cannot unmute?
Now I can. I hope you can hear me. Okay, perfect. First of all, let me take a step back. 117 people in the call at the moment. I predict that the lion's share, the vast majority of the people in the call will pursue a career outside the heavily scientific research. That's the first step. So indeed, there are plenty of opportunities within pharma and biotech, a little bit further away from discovery, from preclinical. That's the first step. Secondly, if you talk about business strategy, for me, that's pretty vague. There are so many things in business strategy, so that is difficult to answer whether you will end up in that part of the business. Market access, yes. But then I would recommend, just like in other cases, that you now start to combine your PhD with, for instance, a study around pricing or market access as such. And then I think, given the fact that there is a scarcity on the market with respect to market access, with respect to pricing, then I'm pretty sure that you can pursue a career in that particular field.
Thank you.
Yeah, and Nicole, I would like to add that your PhD is a starting point for a career.
Let me say one thing. Okay, great. Unmute.
Yeah. Can you hear me now? Okay, so I just wanted to add that a PhD is also a very good starting point for your career later on, because when you join a company, whether it's a small or a big one, you will learn so many things on the job, like skill sets you even maybe didn't know that you had it before in you. So I think there will definitely be ways to find your way through strategy development, whether that is strategy development in research, in market access. It could even be marketing or sales afterwards.
All right, so a big variety of jobs, and then further on in the career, obviously, more opportunities arising. When I was preparing and thinking of, okay, I have the opportunity to speak to recruiters or to HR business partners, directors even, I was thinking of the whole, like the full life cycle of the customer journey, if you want. So I would like to take a step back, customer journey, when I think vacancies that we are applying for. What is actually happening here? Like a recruiter, what happens actually before a vacancy gets published? Maybe Sophie, you have a lot of recruiting expertise just very recently. What is that you are getting from your clients? Like, do you get a list of that's the skills I need to check, I need to match, or what is happening? What's the communication like? And then, and do you post it then? Do you ever post your vacancies, or do you just recruit from your network? So what's happening before we find a vacancy?
Interesting question. Indeed, of course, we have a job description, and we always tend to have meetings with the hiring managers to really understand what kind of people they're looking for, not only from background, but I think personality is also key to fit in a team, to have a job that you like to do. The information we get is really information on the organization, on the department, the team the person will have to fit in. And then, of course, we like to understand as much about the projects coming up, what people really have to do, how they will be evaluated after 3-6 months, so that we can also explain to candidates very well, okay, this will be expected from you in your first year. This is really what it will be about, to just be as transparent as we can about that. And then we resource candidates in many different ways. There's, of course, social media. We have our own network. We have reference checks, etc. Many options. Also spontaneous applications, etc. So, but I think maybe really on what is happening before a vacancy has been published, maybe Vicky could share some insights from her company's perspective.
Yeah. Okay, I will try to explain. So I indeed work at the HR department. I'm not a recruiter, but I work closely together with the talent acquisition team of Sanofi. But in fact, it all starts with a budgeting and a headcount exercise. So at Ablynx, okay, you lost me, I guess, but I'm back. So we work on several research projects, and in fact, we know what the timing is of the project and the different milestones that need to be reached. And in fact, we know when we need some of the profiles. So this makes it for us possible to make a timeline when we need to start hiring for a specific profile. So that's in place, a headcount exercise, but also every quarter we do a forecasting exercise. So things can change along the way on the project, and then we need to adjust here and there. And of course, if people leave the company, we need to start the replacement positions. So this also creates new vacancies. And then when we have the vacancy, then indeed, we work together with the recruiters. We post the vacancies on our own website. So in our case, on the Ablynx career site, but also on the Sanofi career site. And it's also posted on LinkedIn. And we are also linked to the Flanders Bio network. So also there, the positions are posted. And then it starts, and so people can apply, and then the recruiter comes in place.
I might just add the step before even, Vicky, I guess, from my perspective. So we'd often say around October, November time of the year, start looking at the DCP, which is what you're talking about, demand capacity planning. And if we determine in the upcoming year, we're going to need X amount of people. So we'll then, the first step, as you mentioned, is go to the budgeting guys. And often these guys are very financial, very numbers. They don't maybe understand exactly what you want, so you have to fully explain to them the use case, the business case for what you need. That will be signed off by a committee. If you get approval, then you can go and you can start creating your job specs for the various roles that you're looking for the year ahead. But again, they're not going to let you hire them all at one go. They'll have to be phased throughout the year to match the financial requirements. So it may be that we need 10 roles of the same type, but we may only be able to start hiring 3 or 4 in January for Q1. Then Q2 comes in, we might be able to get another 2. By the end of the year, we'll have our 10, and that's the way we will build it up. So for people on the call, I would say, if you see roles and you don't get roles, or you go for a job and it's not there, there could be very similar roles coming very shortly afterwards, and it's nothing to do with the requirements of the hiring manager. It's probably a financial reason why they aren't recruiting for all 10 roles at the same time. So it's often spread throughout the year. So it would be worth your while checking back with, if there is a role that you really like, checking back with that organization, or that checking back on LinkedIn, for example, and keeping an eye, because the hiring managers will often post on LinkedIn themselves. So if you go for an interview, say I was interviewing you, please reach out on LinkedIn, and people will accept for the most part, will accept your friend request. But that'll also allow them to appear in your feed later if similar roles come up. So it's a nice way to do it. But yeah, that's just an addition to what Vicky was saying.
Thank you. So I hear LinkedIn, not follow companies, of course, search for jobs, but then also follow recruiters, or even be connected with recruiters. And then we often speak about the hidden labor market. So the big chunk of jobs that is not necessarily posted. Do you recruit a lot from network? Do you post all the jobs? Is that, Vicky, maybe in your case?
Yeah, we post, in fact, all our jobs, but there is a policy within Sanofi, especially for certain areas, and then I'm not just talking about Ablynx, but in some countries it's a policy that they first need to post a position for some weeks internally before they can go externally. And of course, if they then find an internal candidate, then it doesn't get posted externally. So that's then a difference. But normally, yeah, we do post all our vacancies, yeah.
Okay. And then I suppose all of them are on the company websites or company career sites.
Yeah, indeed.
Okay. All right. Okay. So we are, or someone is sending in his or her application, usually a CV and a motivation letter. And then I actually often get the question, well, we do trainings on CV writing, for example, and then I often get the question, is it a system reading the CVs? Is it an ATS, an application tracking system? Do I need to be keyword heavy in my CV, or is it really a human eye reading the CVs? That might be a quick answer, but that's like a question I hear a lot. Do we need to be automation proof here, or is it still a human looking onto a CV? Guido, are you seeing CVs at all?
Okay. Of course, especially in smaller companies, it's a human eye who will evaluate the resumes. So yes, it's important that you elaborate on what you're looking for and what your skill set are to prove that what you're looking for you can execute on. That's in fact the short answer for a short question.
I would say as well that while it mightn't be automated always, that the people who are looking, the first draft of the CVs they're getting in can be HR people who haven't got maybe the expertise of the hiring manager themselves, but you have to get through them often to get to the hiring manager. So it's no harm in throwing back some of what you're seeing in the job spec or the job description and putting that into your CV, because that's all the HR. They won't have the in-depth expertise in what they're looking for in the role, but they will be looking for keywords themselves. So whether it's automated or human, I still think it's worth having some key words up front that'll clearly at a scan give the HR person a guide on what your skill set is.
In our case, the CVs are screened by the recruiter, but also the hiring manager is going through the screening, and they might have a different point of view to do this screening. So the hiring manager, so that's the person where the vacancy in his or her team that takes place, he or she might have a more has more attention for the technical things that they really need in the position, whereas the recruiter might have a broader view on that. But it's a combination, so they work closely together in our case, and they exchange their feedback.
And I'd also say that often the recruiters will be assigned to different parts of the business, so they will have exposure to particular parts and know for the most part what they're looking for. The hiring managers won't have time to go through all of the CVs. Like in my case, I would post a role. I've worked with the recruiters for the most part, so they kind of know what type of person I'm looking for different. The longer they're in the role, the more they know, and the more they're familiar with what I'm looking for. But they will still probably, they may get 300 applicants and they may whittle that down to 30. So that does happen, that there's a lot of applicants for particular roles. It does depend on the roles, how specific the skill set they're looking for will obviously determine how many applicants there are and so on. But I would say that you can't always guarantee that the hiring manager is the one looking at your CV. So I would try and make it readable for someone who's not necessarily in the medical field that the role may be in.
Thank you. I think that's I do see that this is absolutely relevant, and let's go a step further. This is a question burning under the nails of 76 viewers here. What's the most common mistake you see in applications from PhD transitioning to industry? Speak about the negatives. Sophie, maybe, do you want to go ahead?
Yeah, maybe it's also continuing on what we were saying before. I think the takeaway that Denis is also saying is that, yeah, if you apply for a position, read carefully the job description, and if you can adapt your CV or your resume to what the company is looking for, and if you can highlight in your projects or in your expertise examples of things you've been doing that match the job description, I would say that's really a favor. And as Denis is saying, people in HR, in recruitment, like me, for instance, I don't have a scientific background, although we read a lot, we learn a lot. I have to understand really what your PhD was about in easy words. Of course, there must be scientific terms in it, but it has to be understandable also for people without a scientific background. I think that's one of the strongest points a PhD can do for good CV writing.
Does anyone feel triggered to answer that? What's the most common mistake you see in applications of PhD candidates?
On one hand, we sometimes receive endless CVs with so many pages, and yeah, if there's way too much of additional information that is not relevant, okay, then don't put it in. On the other side, we sometimes receive CVs with very limited info, and then that's also not okay, because we need to know a bit more about the scientific background, some lab techniques you worked with. So you need to find a bit of the balance. And I hear an echo, sorry. Like Sophie mentioned, have a look at the vacancy, what we are really looking for, and try to put your focus on that in your CV as much as possible.
Thank you. Guido, did I see you unmuting? Did you want to add? Guido? You don't hear? No?
No, could you repeat the question?
Yes, I was still sticking to the same question here. Mistakes you see in applications from PhDs, what should they avoid in the application?
I was more thinking about the not the application as such, but more the mindset behind the application. With all respect for the very hard work over the last year, finish a PhD, I think most of you need to be humble when they approach industry and need to come with a mentality that you can learn a lot when you join industry. And one of the things which immediately come to mind is the fact that in industry and biotech, you need to deliver, where in some instances in the academia, you would take more time to dig deeper and to really go to the nitty-gritty of things, where in biotech, the saying that good is the enemy of best or better, that you need to deliver against timelines and things which are less common in, I believe, academia. Well, that's at least the feedback I got from more experienced people in biotech, that they say, look, you need to deliver at a certain point in time, you need to finish, you need to come up with a conclusion. And that, I think, is an important mindset when you join biotech. So it's not about the application as such, but about being open for a new culture.
All right, thank you. There's a couple of more questions regarding quality, skills needed. So what not to do, but what qualities are you looking for in a candidate? We tackled a few already. What are the qualities you are looking for in a candidate? Anyone jumping in?
I think.
For whom is the question?
Sorry. Okay, I'll be more concrete. Dennis, what are the qualities you're looking for?
Sure. Well, it depends on the role, of course, but I think first of all, when people are applying for a particular role, provided they have the functional skill set, you're going to be, initially that will get you to a certain stage, but then you may be down to the final 5. And what I think will give you an edge over others will be the cultural fit. You naturally will, your rapport with interviewers, of course, comes into it, but you're looking for people who are, I think, just extending from what Guido was just saying, who are open to learning, open to upskilling, open to moving into different areas. So it may be that within the organization, there's several career paths. I know, having taken people in, people go off in all different directions once they get into the organization. So what you're looking for is what we call in Novartis LASP, is learning, agility, and sustained performance. And that's all about, people have different ways that they can progress. One could be purely functional. It could be that they stick within their field and they go right to the top and become thought leaders within the organization in that field. Others may start at one point and then move off into management of some other team in a completely different functional area of the business. So what you're probably looking for most is people, the common sense aspect. As my dad says, common sense isn't as common as you think. That recruiters and people on the hiring panel are looking for that the person they're talking to is, I think adaptable is a good word, because adaptability to different situations, that you can demonstrate that you are, you have the functional expertise, you have the knowledge of what's required for the role, but that you could go further within the organization, and that you will be a great asset to this organization through your skill set, through your people skills, through the more soft skills that you can demonstrate also. So I would say that's there's some of the qualities we're looking for in the candidate.
Thank you. In the preparation, Vicky, we were particularly speaking about the culture fit, and that you would pay, or your team would pay attention to culture fit. Do you want to elaborate?
Indeed, that's an important one for us. And of course, the technical skills need to be there also. But then if indeed we have a few candidates at the final stage, we also look at the cultural fit. There needs to be a fit with the company culture, but also a fit within the team itself, because they need to work together on a daily basis. And also for us, it's important that people are flexible. They need to be enthusiastic, motivated, passionate. So all these kind of things. If that is present, that's always nice to see.
So passion, I heard that recently quite a bit from recruiters. They said that if people have the same qualifications or are even less skilled, but they show the motivation and the passion and really the willingness to step into that role and grow in that role, that this actually counts a lot. And I hear that quite a bit. So I was not surprised when you were saying that in the preparation, that for you that also counts a lot in the process. I suppose, Sophie, for you, it's a bit different because you have different clients. You're looking for people. So it's not the culture that you breathe.
Yeah, of course, but we know our clients after a while very well. We work, for instance, for big pharmaceutical American companies as well as for Japanese companies who require different types of people, or different types of people are better in certain types of companies. For instance, working in a scale-up or startup would be very different than working in a big organization. So it really comes down to personality, what people like to do, and as you mentioned, the passion they show during the interview. And I would also like to add curiosity, because you feel when people are willing to learn, willing to engage in extra courses or extra looking up extra information from different departments, also a bit the networking they do when they go through the hiring process, etc. It all comes down to that.
I think the curiosity, the word there is great to hear, because so at Novartis we have since 2017 we had a new CEO that came in, and his aim was to change a cultural transformation within the organization. You'll hear these transformations going on all the time in these big organizations, whether it's a digital transformation, cultural transformation, the functional transformations. But at the heart of the cultural transformation, they changed the values and behaviors of the company. So now what they are inspired, curious, and unbossed. And they're the three things that they want to promote within the organization. This is coming right from the top, and it's come right down through the organization, and it's completely changed from what it was 4 years ago to this new unbossed culture. And what I mean by unbossed is that there's still structural leadership, but it's a flatter organization than it used to be. There's not as much dictation of what needs to happen, or there's more focus on collaboration, and curiosity is key to that. I think curiosity at the heart of everything, and if someone can show in an interview that they have a wide variety of interests in broad areas, even when they say to you going into an interview you should research the company that you're going to, I think that's just not to show that you have done that. It's more also that it'll help you within the interview. It'll help you if you can understand what type of organization it is from a cultural perspective, but also potentially to the level of how the organization is broken down. And you can often get that from the website of the organization. Then when you're talking and they're asking you questions, they have a structure in mind when they're asking those questions. And the answers that you give, if you have a greater understanding of what they're looking for, it just helps you straight away. They don't have to explain themselves further. They don't have to elaborate more on the question and so on. So, yeah.
At Sanofi, there's also a new CEO since September 2019. And yeah, it's some of the things that a new CEO wants to bring in to put his stamp on things. So he also wants to bring in a cultural change, and it's called the play to win behaviors. And there are some values linked to that, like take action, act for change, think Sanofi first, and think first about the patients. So these are the core values. And we see that this is really, this is closely linked with the values we had as a biotech company in the former Ablynx situation. So we are very happy to see this, because the DNA we have at Ablynx is now more linked with the Sanofi culture and values in global. So once again, to say that the culture is very important.
Speaking about
culture, if I may add here,
of course.
If I may add here something, I think talking about culture is typical for larger organizations. It's kind of glue to keep different parts together. In smaller organization, it will be more organic, and it will feel more natural to be part of a company. So it depends a little bit on where you are or which company you will join, where it will become more important or less important.
And I would also like to add, because when we're talking about qualities we're looking for in candidates, it also has to be authentic, because we all say, we want people that are curious, that are flexible, etc. But you really have to think about, okay, what am I good at? If you say you're flexible, are you really? Because if not, it won't help, and it doesn't mean that you won't be available or a good candidate for a certain company. But I would say also look at your own qualities and look for companies that align with those qualities as well.
Thank you very much. I have so many questions popping up. In the interview, then, like, how do you assess the cultural fit to the company, and how does a candidate assess the cultural fit to the company? Because they should have the question as well, of course. But speaking about company culture, there was a question that also popped to my mind now, is has to do with the company culture, I believe. Is being a mother an obstacle to be hired in the pharma industry? Shall I avoid to mention maternity leave from my CV? Part of the company culture, I suppose. Denis, do you mind pointing your direction?
Sure. No is the answer there. I would definitely. There's no point in hiding it. I think it's actually, in a lot of cases, it can be welcomed. I'm currently on paternity leave. Our organization just brought in 6 months of leave for fathers as well. That can be accessed as soon as you join. There's a guy that we hired last July, and he had a baby in August, and he's now on paternity leave. So it's not something, an obstacle at all. It isn't something you have to hide from or shy away from. So please don't feel like you need to do that. In any organization I know, it's not something that you have to hide at all. No.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. There's no reason in hiding these kind of things. It's a nice thing. So we have many young mothers working for us. So not an obstacle at all, no.
Mm-hmm. And we're all human beings. It's part of life. So also of our professional life. So no issue at all.
Nice to hear. There's a question, not I have, but the listeners had a question, maybe a bit similar. When we're not speaking about being parents or early parents, but being non-Europeans from nationality, is that an obstacle? If you're third country, I suppose that means not having a EU citizenship. Is that an obstacle for jobs here in the sector in Belgium or in Europe? Because we had the question coming from someone being here in Belgium. We had the same kind of question come on from someone being in Switzerland. I know in Belgium legislation changed recently with the single permit. What's your experience? Is hiring someone who doesn't have a work permit yet, or who has a work permit but is not European citizen, is that a problem for companies?
For us, no. We do have some employees with this kind of permit. The only thing you need to take into account is indeed that it takes more time to arrange all the administration, and this is something you need to take into account if you want somebody to start at that point in time. Take into account that you need several weeks to go through the administration, but we work together with the relocation office who gives the person the necessary support on that. But not an obstacle at all, no.
Do you have any other experience, Sophie? It takes more time. It probably takes a little more money for someone to hire.
It takes time. That's the only thing I would add. But indeed, we often did it before, so it's not an issue at all. It's just that sometimes the companies really need someone the sooner the better, and then it could be slowing down the process, but it happens a lot.
You, Denis, I don't know if you know about that in Ireland. Is it any different?
Yeah, it's just the only thing again is the time. If we have roles that we have a lot of time and planned out, and if there's a particular candidate and they're perfect fit for the role, then often we're willing to wait. At the end of the day, I don't have to go through the admin, so it's just the time that I'm waiting for the person to join. So it doesn't really affect the hiring manager that much, provided the the legislation allows it, of course. So if they have a permit for the EU, there's no problem in Ireland either. We have on my team, we have it's spread across Hyderabad, Dublin, and Mexico. So we're hiring people from all of those three locations predominantly, but then we have people on the team from Prague, from Switzerland, and I think we have 7 nationalities or 8 nationalities just on my team in Dublin, as well as the others. So yeah, nationality or anything like that isn't an obstacle. It's just the timelines. Some roles we want to get them, up and running within 2 months. It probably it takes longer when you're looking for someone that has to go through particular permit applications and so on.
Thank you. And I see a related question, maybe not related to nationality, but could form an obstacle or not. Is prior experience in pharma relevant or a must to secure a job in the pharma industry? Guido.
It depends a little bit. If you're looking for somebody, if the job description requires a certain experience, then of course, without experience, it might become difficult. But there are also plenty of jobs where an experience is not required. So it depends a little bit on the job description.
Agree. Quick answer. Okay, thank you very much. If I follow I see there's a lot more questions, and we are going through them one by one. I have, or let me step one step back. Maybe we were speaking about CVs, we were speaking about the qualities of a candidate. Here's a specific question regarding cover letters. Maybe that can be a quick answer as well. But what do you consider in an interesting cover letter? I don't know if you work with cover letters at all in Ireland. I guess in the Benelux and in Belgium, cover letter is still a thing. I don't know. It's a question, I guess. And what's relevant for good application when we are speaking about cover letters here?
Yeah, we do have cover letters, and in Novartis we're still so. What will happen is we'll post the job description, and then I will get for the candidates that we won't see the cover letter actually until after we've seen the CV. So it may be that the interview is arranged, and then a link will be sent to me with the cover letter and CV in it, and that's when I'll be reading the cover letter. Will be in advance of the interview. So for me personally, the CV in that respect is probably more important just to get you in the door. But then before the interview stage, they will be reading your cover letter to see more your motivations, some of what we were talking about, the cultural fit, your mindset. Why are you applying for this job? Why do you think it's a good job for you? Why do you think you'll be an asset to the company? All of those kind of things. And the more you can, I always like cover letters personally that feel like they're not just copied and pasted from cover letter online somewhere, that you're getting a real sense of the person, that the language doesn't have to be sophisticated. It can be almost as direct as you can make the cover letter, and it's the more you can make it feel like it's actually a person writing the cover letter, and that you can get some kind of sense for it just adds to that person's persona when you're going into the interview stage. If you have some kind of more information on them going in, then it's always useful, and I think that's what a cover letter can bring.
All right. Thank you very much for the cover letter. There's another question. People often don't know how to handle that. What about the follow-up? Like if you don't hear back after so and so many days, or if you're not happy with the answer you're hearing, what do you appreciate from the recruiter side when it comes to follow-up? Do you appreciate people calling? Are they, if it's 2 days later, is that too soon to call? Or do you rather want an email, or do you want no follow-up? What do you appreciate in a motivated, enthusiastic candidate? Call you, stalk you, send letters? Sophie?
Yeah, I would not say stalk me, please don't. But I like it when candidates do a good follow-up, like once a week check-in. But on the other hand, there's also the process that has to be followed. And they also need to trust us when we say, okay, we will give you feedback as soon as we get feedback. But I love it when people check in with a small email or a call. They can definitely also call me just to say, okay, where are we at? Did you have some news? But yeah, I would say once a week, but not every day. That would be too much, I guess.
Anything to add, Vicky?
Well, it's a bit the same at our side, but I'm even not involved at the start of the process. I only get to see the people at the end of the process, because the first contact is with recruiter, first interview with the hiring manager, then the team, and I only come at the end of the stage. So, but yeah, we need to go through different steps, and this takes time. But if I get questions from candidates, then yeah, we try to answer them as quick as possible. Then I reach out to the recruiter, and then they provide an answer to the candidate.
Okay, so reaching out, following up is appreciated. Calling, sending email.
Yeah, indeed. But not on a daily basis.
And I would say that don't be surprised at the length of time it can take. It doesn't, just because you haven't heard from them in a couple of weeks doesn't mean anything, really. You know, they may be interviewing a huge amount of people, but they're also, the hiring manager is often, they're doing their day-to-day as well. As when they're recruiting, it's on top of what they have to do. So we do try and get through them as quick as we can, but you know, often it can take, you know, there could be 2 months worth of interviews and a lengthy process. And if you're one of the very first people, by the time you've met the end, you might be, oh, I didn't get that job, or I did, you know, they didn't go for me because I haven't heard from them. I'd say you can definitely get in touch with the recruiter or the HR, the talent acquisition person, and just to check. But often their answer will be, we're still waiting on the hiring manager to get back to us. And I know that's the case.
Okay, so reach out, follow up, or even call up front, and make sure that your application is being seen. Okay, so much about the application kind of process. There are a couple of questions. If we are zooming out from the application process regarding, for example, certificates, which there's a question, and I'm gonna, oh, it's the next one already on my screen, I suppose. Certificates, career path. Are there some courses, certificates that would be better to attend, have to get a job in industry after an academic work path? Are there certain certificates, technical skills more than soft skills and attitude of the candidate? But what is the extra certificates people should think of acquiring if they want to go to industry? Guido, if I may address that to you.
Yes, again, you may sound as a broken record, but if you want to pursue a career in marketing and sales, for instance, then it might be good to combine your PhD with some management courses with an MBA or things like that. The same is true. Some of you might end up in finance. Again, it makes sense then to combine your current work with something related to that. I already brought up marketing access. If you are interested and you know there are always jobs available, then it might be good to do a course with respect to pricing, for instance. So it depends a little bit on in which direction you want to go. If, for instance, you absolutely want to stay very close to the lab and to the scientific part, then a postdoc might, another postdoc might make sense. So it depends a little bit. There is no cookie cutter approach here. You really need to look at your own situation and build further on that.
Thank you very much. Start with yourself, start with the self-assessment and then go from there. I saw you unmuting, Denis. Was that a hand raise?
Yeah, I was just about to say, so, you know, the certificate, so internally at Novartis, we have access, every employee has access to Coursera and LinkedIn Learning. And these are two platforms that they partner with universities, and they offer a great way to maybe for candidates, they can say join up to Coursera. It's actually not that much to do it, but you have, you know, I think they have 4,000 different types of courses now that give you a flavor. They range from somewhere between 3 and 4 weeks to 12 weeks long. They walk you through week on week what you steps in the process, and it can give you a flavor. Actually, that's an area I'm interested in. It's also something that you can add onto your CV. By going through these courses, you get certificates at the end. Often you can say I've completed a course in X, Y, and Z, but then you can explore further. If you know, after your 10-week course, it's something you're really interested in, you could then go away and do an MBA or a deeper dive with an institute in that particular area. You know, I'm a firm believer in that. The more diverse your interests, the more you'll start to link things together in your head. You'll start to bring, you know, oh, actually, that's something that I can apply my skill set to, or that's an idea I could maybe use for this role. And it'll just open your eyes to different possibilities. And I think back to the first question we had today, the opportunities that you have. You mightn't always know what they are until you start exploring further and seeing the different fields that you could potentially get into. And something like Coursera or LinkedIn Learning are a good way to do
that. Thank you. It's just a technical thing. If you always have to mute and unmute, it takes a minute or a second to actually jump into the conversation, and I feel that. Okay, but thank you very much. So Coursera, LinkedIn Learning, but start with yourself and assess yourself and where you want to go and what's your why and what kind of jobs are you looking for, and then go from there and ask this question again. Now, saying that, I remember our preparation, Guido, where you were saying kind of the same words, I guess. Start with what's your why, what do you want, what kind of job is it that you want, and then go from there and speak to people and reach out to people and ask that even more specifically, indeed. Yeah. Okay. Going back to your questions about the certificates, the courses. What extra courses can I follow? But we've heard about that. Should you dare to still apply if you know that you don't check all the boxes on the vacancy? There's two questions related to that. During your PhD, you acquire a very specific skill set of techniques. How should you approach job listings which ask for totally different expertise? So I guess that's the transition, but it's also the transition from an academic position now to the non-academic world, to the non-academic jobs. Or how much is the experience level in the advertised positions sine qua non requirement? So how can I dare to apply even if I don't check all the boxes yet? Should I still go for it? I see you nodding, Guido.
Yes, absolutely. Of course, be realistic. If you cannot apply for a role as CEO of Sanofi if you just are fresh from university. But in a lot of cases, indeed, it's not. You don't need to tick all the boxes. And you know, there is something interesting. I told you earlier that I am a sociologist by training, and I did during my J&J time some gender studies. And what I see is that females, unfortunately, are very much hindered by the idea that they don't tick all the boxes, where the males, the men, much more easily are saying, yes, I can do that, or at least I can learn this. So for me, this is a call for everybody, male or female, to indeed give it a try. Be realistic, give it a try. Also, don't be naive, but at the same time, you should approach the interview with a mindset of, okay, I know what I can, I know what I cannot do today, but what I can learn. So I think that is the right spirit. But again, don't apply for a role which is completely off your skill set. But on the other hand, stretch your resume a little bit. That's no issue at all.
Yeah, I totally agree with what Guido is saying. Definitely, we're always looking for someone that ticks all the boxes, and I can tell you, we don't often find people that tick all the boxes. So if there are 10 boxes to be ticked and you already have 3, 4, 5, go ahead and give it a try. Think about all the skill sets you have acquired during your expertise, and think about examples, and then you might get a chance, definitely.
Yeah, I also agree with that. In the vacancy, you give a kind of indication what experience you are looking for. But okay, if then suddenly there's a candidate with less experience that also fits the profile, then okay, we will also take that person in our interviews and talk to them. Also, especially if we talk about niche profiles. Recently, we had a biostatistician position, which is not so easy to find. And also there, in fact, initially, we aimed at somebody with several years of experience. But okay, we ended up with a fresh PhD with a limited amount of years of experience. And okay, it's nice to see that that person was... fitting the profile, and that we also have broadened our view on that.
Nice example. Brings me to the question we also had in the prep. What's a memorable candidate? I know I'm jumping back now, but do you have this now was maybe a memorable candidate because just a PhD graduate who went for a bigger scale kind of job, but he still, or she, I don't know, made it. Do you have any? Would you like to share a memorable candidate? What was someone impressing you?
Well, in this case, it was a female candidate, and it was in fact a calm, introvert person, but she was very enthusiastic, talking about her experience, and she really catched my attention and also the attention of the other colleagues in the team, and she convinced us with her passion, as we mentioned before.
Beautiful. I mean, good to hear.
Yeah, indeed.
Thank you.
I'd say is that happens all the time. So we have, so currently I have 30 roles open or something like that we're hiring for within my team. And the people may be suited to, they may apply for one role, but actually in the back of my head, I know, okay, they're actually more suited for that role. So that does happen, and that people, you may apply for a particular role, but because you've impressed and that you get on well with the candidate, and you can see that they'd be a good cultural fit, that they have good expertise, that they may be suitable for another role that that hiring manager has open, or that even I'd have once a month, I have with the wider teams within our business unit, and so I know what they're hiring for as well. So I probably currently we're hiring for a few hundred roles, and I'd have some idea, or high level anyway, what they are looking for, having worked with them over a number of years. So I may point a candidate, and I've done it, the past couple of weeks. There was someone who applied for our team, and we said actually you'd be more suited to the medical information team, so we pushed them off there. So, and I think they're going. I don't think they've got the job yet, but they've got to the second stage of interview. So it does happen, definitely, and it's worth throwing your hat in the ring.
Thank you. Thank you for your answers. There is a question now here on top of my list where 37 people voted for the question. Which are jobs that are specially for PhDs? And I would like to rephrase that actually. What's the advantage of a PhD applicant for a job versus the advantage of someone who only has a master's degree for that job? His or her advantages. What's the difference for you as the company who is looking into this candidates if a master is applying for the same kind of jobs as an PhD? So what's the advantage here of either one? And then the second part of the question, is there a different career track? Like, do you see from your experience from being in the business so long, if those people with a different degree being several years in the job, in their career, are there typically different career tracks then? So the first question at the starting point, but then longitudinal, is there a difference depending on the degree? Guido?
Okay. First of all, again, if you apply for a job in discovery and preclinical in the first part of drug development, most masters will start at the bench, 100%, 80%, 100% at the bench. PhDs, if we launch a job for less bench, then in most cases we expect more scientific depth, knowledge, and then we specifically will say that a PhD is required, period. Further on in the drug development, the difference between master and PhD, in my opinion, become less relevant. All in all, a master with a little bit of years can compete with a PhD. So in 10 years, in 20 years, nobody will recall whether you have done a PhD or whether you have only a master. It becomes less relevant. So again, it's difficult to say, to give a very clear answer here. In general, you can say scientific roles, yes, a master can apply, but will work much more under the wings, under the leadership of somebody with a PhD and even a postdoc. But that difference might disappear over time.
Yeah, I agree. And we have a few cases like that within the company. So we have some nice examples of masters that grew along the way to the same level as the PhD. So in the end, they ended up at the same level. But okay, it might take some time, and it really depends on the interest of the person and the growth path he or she wants to follow. But a fresh master indeed starts with us most of the time at the bench as a lab technician. Whereas a fresh PhD or with a limited experience or a postdoc experience, they start at a higher level. But once again, the master can also get there building up experience over time.
When I'm thinking further, or when I'm thinking back, actually, Denis, to what you said, for you, it's important, the learning agility and the sustained performance, if I remember correctly. Is that something that typically someone with a PhD can play out better than a master's? Or what's the advantage? How can someone with a PhD degree be stronger or be seen stronger as an applicant in comparison to someone with a master? Of course, with the technical background they had over 4 or 5 years in the lab or so. But what's the difference here, PhD master, for you?
So I guess going back to what we were talking about at the start, that, say people have the same level of technical or functional expertise that you're differentiating based on the cultural fit, that can work in the reverse as well. So if you have two people who are a good fit for the team and have got on well with the interviewees, and it comes down to a choice between a PhD or a master's, you're going to go for the PhD in that regard if they're going for the same role, just because they've demonstrated that they have a more in-depth knowledge in that particular functional area. So, when it comes down to that level, I think PhDs definitely have an advantage over master's students. From what Guido is saying, there are jobs that will go and it needs a PhD. That'll be in the job description. You have to be a PhD for this. Others, masters can apply and people can grow. When you're 5 years, 6 years into the industry, again, no one will remember what level you came in on, because it's all about what you actually do on the job, or what you actually, so the 70-20-10 learning principle comes in, that 70% of what you learn you won't know before you come into the company anyway. So that's when we talk about learning agility and sustained performance, that's what we mean, is that the 20 and the 10 aspects of the 70-20-10 are what you will have gained through your academia or what you've gained from your past experience, but the current role that you're going for, 70% of that is learning on the job. So I think what PhD can differentiate themselves by having more experience or more functional or technical expertise in a particular area. And there is a certain amount of, okay, they've been dedicated to a PhD for 4+ years. That that comes with a certain kudos, should we say? That comes definitely. It shows that they are dedicated, that they continue, they have a strong work ethic. All of those things that naturally comes going through a PhD, that comes through, and people know that, and recruiters know that when they're looking for a candidate.
May I add a follow-up question here, because we have postdocs being in the audience as well, or maybe PhDs thinking about starting with a postdoc. We had that earlier, maybe as an extra kind of education certificate, and postdoc could be a way, but then there is doubts, like how long of a postdoc time is still considered to be valuable for the application then for those jobs. Is like 2 years of a postdoc still an added value? Is like, let's say 5 years of a postdoc too much and not seen as an added value anymore? Do you have experience with that?
If I may answer that. Yes, it's absolutely important to think also this through. Again, doing a postdoc might make sense to get more knowledge and more depth, but then you probably will end up in a role where that knowledge makes sense. On the other hand, in a lot of cases, if you stay too long in academia or doing postdoc, you will be overtaken by youngsters. The competition will become higher. And like I said, you need different skill set in industry versus academia. And so it might be that, if you stay too long in that postdoc environment, that you don't fit any longer into a biotech or industry environment. So it's don't use a postdoc to stay away from that way. It might be at a certain point in time more important to really take your time and to invest in setting the step than to drag on in your current environment and then later on come to the conclusion that, in fact, it's too late.
Okay.
Yeah, I agree with what Guido is saying. I think a postdoc, it could be very helpful. For instance, if the position you're looking for is very much linked to your postdoc, then I would say it's a plus. But as Guido is saying as well, after a while, it's too much or not that interesting anymore, or not that much of added value comparing to the experience and the background you already got.
Okay, I'm trying to read through the questions that are still coming into the left. We have 5 minutes left for the discussion. There's questions regarding networking now during the pandemic, how to do that. Where are recruiters, hiring managers at the moment during the pandemic? I mean, I guess they're at home often, but how to do the networking? Do you have any quick ideas, tricks, how to reach out? We heard LinkedIn earlier. Is there any other, be on online conferences, go to, I don't know, is there anything that pops up in regards to networking? Sophie, I see you have like 15,000 followers on LinkedIn, so you must be a networker.
I think LinkedIn is a very easy platform. It's also a professional networking platform, so that would be the easy one to get in touch and to follow up. I think also sending an email is not wrong at all. I have less experience with really online networking events, but why not? I think it could be definitely useful.
Indeed, the same for us also. And LinkedIn is a very good channel. Lately, we were also present on several job fairs that are now organized virtually. And for example, I think in September, that's also a yearly conference that we attend, organized by Flanders Bio Knowledge for Growth. So these kind of things, you can reach many companies at the same time. In fact, you can reach out to people, and it's nice to see that all these kind of things are now organized virtually.
And it's nice to hear on the other end that companies are picking up on that, because when we are organizing those kind of career fairs, online career fairs with different universities for PhDs or broader, and it's important that companies are picking up on that. And just the one we had in March, there were more than 100 companies signing up for the PhD part of things. So it's nice to see. And that actually leads me to my last kind of topic I would like to address. We have so many years of experience here on the table or in the career fair setting. What has changed over the last years when it comes to the hiring process, or what has changed even during COVID? I guess the online recruiting part, but that's for everyone. We are now recruiting online. You conduct the interviews online and these kind of things. But when it comes to hiring strategy, what are the changes you are seeing until now? And then even more interesting, I think, what do you predict? If you had the glass ball, what's going to change in the industry? What kind of skills will stay relevant, will be even more relevant in the next, let's say, 5 to 10 years or so? What's your prediction here? Someone who's an early stage researcher, what's the way to go? Guido.
Unfortunately, I have a lot of years on the teller, and what I see is that biotech, pharma, drug development becomes more and more international. So when I started my career, we were recruiting people locally. Nowadays, there are no boundaries, and that comes back to an earlier question, whether you can apply for a job coming from a different or another country. Yes, you can, and you will be in competition with people from across the world, and that will not change. It has nothing to do with COVID or Corona, but I see this as a trend that the world becomes a village and the world is flat. I think that is important. which also means that, in fact, from a cultural perspective, you need to adapt to different cultures. And from that perspective, an Erasmus makes sense, or a collaboration with universities across the world. That all makes sense to show that you have the ability to work in an international environment.
Denis, do you have any addition?
Yeah, well, I would say what the pandemic has done is brought our company closer together. So I have a far stronger working relationship now with people on my team in India and Mexico and the US and right across the globe that I didn't necessarily have before. So I think what it maybe prompts hiring managers and people they're looking for, that the roles they advertise can be in a wider geographic locations. It doesn't necessarily matter where you're hiring from or where the candidates are coming from. And I think if anything, people are more open to that now, which is good for everybody worldwide potentially. Maybe it makes the market a bit more difficult when you're hiring because there's more people going for similar jobs, but it also opens up a further reach, a geographic reach for you when you're hiring. If you want to, say before we would have met people that were living in Ireland for particular roles. Now we open it up across Europe potentially. So a couple of people we hired recently, there was someone from Portugal, someone from Italy, that potentially before those roles, because we would have been doing the interviews face to face and all that, they might have gone to jobs in Ireland. So I just think there's a bigger job market out there now. That's one of the few good things that the pandemic has given us.
Okay, that was one additional point. I think we are at I know that we are at 2:30. we should round off. We should close. But I think it's a very interesting and relevant add-on. Next to learning agility, sustained performance, those are keywords I noted down. Curiosity, the cultural intelligence, being relevant, being more relevant in the industry. I thank you so very much, all four of you, for your expertise, for your time, for sharing. And there's the hearts and the clapping hands coming in instead of the people dancing for you now. There we have the ends. Thank you so very much, everyone. I think everyone is reachable via LinkedIn. We dropped the LinkedIn word now a couple of times. There will be a recording being available on the EATRIS site, where if you wish to share that with others or record or rewatch a couple of answers here. Thank you all to those who are here for sending in the questions. I know that we didn't answer like every single one, but I still hope that we could at least answer a bit of the questions with what we were speaking about. So if I could give my flowers to you all, thank you a lot. We'll stay in touch, hopefully, and have a great afternoon. Bye-bye.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Nicole.
Bye.
Bye.
Goodbye.